Hi everyone, my name is Holly, and today's wrap-up is going to be quite a bit different than my normal monthly wrap-ups. Today, I am only going to be talking about all the bad books that I've read recently. And then next week, I'll be talking about all the good books that I read so that they get their special moment. I'm doing this because reading has been a struggle bus for me. Not in the sense where I am in a reading slump, far from it. I have been picking books up left and right, but I just haven't been enjoying the books that I pick up recently. Whether it's because it's the mood I'm in, or because the world is stressful, or I'm just coincidentally picking up books that I just normally wouldn't enjoy because unfortunately I am a very critical reader. I wish I wasn't. I wish I could find enjoyment in every single book that I read, but unfortunately I have a poo reading brain. So I will be talking about 4 books today. 2 of them I DNF'd, so let's go ahead and start with the first one, and that is Cold Counsel by Chris Sharp. So, you know me by now. I love me a good fantasy book. Give me some orcs, elves, trolls, not internet trolls. Fuck them. But when they wield a big axe and also have goblin companions just like Slud here in this story, the book might as well be dedicated to me. So this is not your kiddie fantasy, it is a adult fantasy. It is purely a revenge story following a troll named Slud, and he is the last of his kind, and he is raised by a witch. And all through this childhood, he was brutally trained and practically tortured to be able to survive as he got older, because he is very important in this world. I was so excited to read a book where a troll is the main character. I mean, how often do you really see that? It's very unique to me. And also, he's like the hero, so to speak, of the story. There's an abundance of action and fountains of gore, which makes this a very quick and exciting read. However, I just couldn't get attached to the characters. Another thing that I really didn't like, and I feel like it's a pet peeve of mine because I will be complaining about it yet again in the next book that I talk about, Slud's dialogue is written in broken English. It's heavily slanged and I just didn't like it at all. Okay, get away from me. I hate it when authors do that. I know it's supposed to bring you closer to the story, but for me personally, it actually brings me out of the story because I'm trying so freaking hard to understand what the characters are saying. Also, please help me. I saw a review of someone comparing this to Joe Abercrombie. No, girl. You're probably not a girl. Your name was Gary. Gary, you're wrong. I ended up giving this 2 out of 5 stars. It's a really short book, and I never ever want to say on this channel, I didn't like this book, so you guys shouldn't read it. No, do the opposite. Pick this book up for yourself, and I truly hope that you enjoy it way more than I did. The next book on this very negative list is The Book of Kolya by M.R. Carey. So this is a book that I DNF'd, and I am so freaking sad about it, but I think I have a really good reason for it. And it was for my sanity. First off, this takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where nature has evolved and is taking revenge on humanity, and also pretty much all technology is lost. You can't even just happily walk out of the compounds without having to worry about seeds falling on your skin and burrowing into you. Yeah, it's terrifying. But unfortunately, I could not get behind the writing style. I totally understand why the reading style is what it is, but it is like reading a different language. It's like caveman speak the entire book. Okay, well, that's dramatic. I DNF'd this book at page 50, but I'm assuming it's like that for the whole book. Here's an exact sentence from chapter 1. Judging is what them that listen does for them that tell. What? I totally understand it's how this dystopian community speaks because all knowledge is lost, but it totally drove me nuts. And I honestly felt like it gave Kolya 0 personality having to tell the story like this. I couldn't even tell what kind of person he was because I didn't know what the heck he was saying. I personally can't read a book over 400 pages in that writing style. I couldn't even focus on the actual story because it was so harsh. I desperately wish it was written just normally, but I have to save the last few brain cells that I have left because, I mean, Twitter takes like 500 daily. The next book that I really hate having to mention because I'm just so disappointed by it, and that is Torn by Rowena Miller. This book was actually part of my random number generator TBR for June. If you saw that video, then you saw me blindly choose this, and I was pretty excited for it. It's a historical fantasy, and I use the word fantasy very loosely here. It promises a tale of a seamstress who can stitch magical charms into garments, and then she gets caught up in a revolution. So yes, very weird timing for me to pick up this book. This book was so full of protests and riots and a marginalized group who is being ignored. It's so reminiscent of today that it felt like I was reading a news article. So heavy politics here. If you are not into politics in your fantasy, then be sure to skip this one. I do enjoy politics and fantasy to a point. There were certainly things that I did like about this. The concept was really cool. I mean, sewing magical charms into clothing, hell yeah. The writing was also very easy to read and lush, and actually just the first 30% of this book I generally liked. And now for my complaints. Okay, so I really wanted there to be more magic in this book, like fantasy. Historical fantasy, where is the fantasy at? I don't freaking know. Because all we're told the entire book is that the main character can sew magical charms into clothing. That is her job. She owns a shop where she does this for nobility, for the people around her. But it never really comes to surface. There's no seeing magic at all. And then the romance came. Ugh, please. I found it really annoying and honestly kind of problematic. The love interest forces the main character to do things and go to places where she doesn't give approval for. Even while she's working at her shop, he'll just show up, grab her hand, and drag her out and be like, oh, let's go, we're leaving. She's a very independent character until she's around her love interest, or actually like any male character in general. She just turns into a freaking wet mop. So even after all of those complaints, I don't want to push anyone away from this book because it's definitely a me thing. This book just isn't for me, and I hope if you guys find interest in it that you enjoy it. And the final book I'll be talking about today is Time of Green Magic. First off, I really want to mention that this is a middle grade novel, and I have read plenty of middle grade in my adult life. I have 5-starred many of them. I absolutely love that genre. But this book kind of read like it was for toddlers. And I say that not in a negative way, I'm just saying that like I didn't realize how young it was actually written as. I saw the beautiful cover and I saw middle grade and I was like, yes, I'm reading you next. And that is another thing. Fantasy. This is actually very contemporary. And I actually DNF'd it halfway through that, and it's a very short book. And nothing fantasy happened. Anyways, let me quickly tell you what it's about. It's really short. It follows a young girl named Abby, and her father remarries. So they move into a mixed family, which involves 2 younger boys, and they move into a new house that has a magic on its own. Another negative thing that really stood out to me is that the characters felt so awkward. Especially the children and the way that they were written. Like, it really took me out of the story when the youngest kid, who I assumed was 8, he knew about leasing houses and selling property. That didn't make sense to me, and please keep in mind this book is written so simplistic. It's like reading one of those like ABC books. So an 8-year-old talking about like leasing properties, it threw me in, man. This book in general just really fell flat for me, but I mean, being someone who is an adult, obviously a child would really love this. I don't think he would understand the leasing houses part though. Alrighty, so those are 4 books that I have picked up recently that I was very disappointed in. Be sure to subscribe so that you can watch my next video, which will be talking about all of the good and amazing books I have read recently. Also be sure to follow my Instagram at HollyHeartsBooks and on Twitter at HollyNiece, and until we meet again, happy reading.